brought to you by Squarespace. Today we're getting into some woodworking basics by making our own custom mallet using only hand tools. Stay tuned. Greetings adventurers and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. So there are a certain set of fundamental skills within every kind of different discipline that I think is exemplified by making your own tools. So for example, a kind of starter project for blacksmithing is making your own tongs, right? By the time you're done learning how to make that tool, you've mastered a bunch of the necessary, very kind of basic skills. Well, the same goes with woodworking. There are a certain set of tools or little jigs and stuff you can make that are gonna greatly improve your ability to do further, more complex things later on. And one of the best starter such projects is making your own mallet, which is 100% why I'm doing this episode and not because I need a new mallet. It's not. It's only a little bit because I need a mallet and I'm cheap. But I promise, this is gonna be fun to do and it's something that you can totally handle yourself. To add a little extra spice to this thing though, I'm only gonna be using hand tools. Now, if you wanna follow along and you have the power tools to do the things we wanna do, totally fine. There's nothing wrong with using your power tools. But by learning how to use the hand tools and kind of do it the hard way, you really get a better understanding of the materials you're working with and just different ways to approach the same problem. All right, without much further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. Now I'm gonna be making my mallet out of some white oak because I just so happen to have this 2-foot length of white oak here. This is 1.5 inches thick by 3.5 inches wide. But don't get too hung up on those exact dimensions. You could either glue a bunch of pieces together to make it as thick as you need it to be, or if you have a piece that is like a block, like a 4x4 or something that you want to use, you could totally use that, but the process will be a little bit different than what we're doing here today. Now for starters, I measured this thing out to be about 1 foot long, and then used a square to make sure that was nice and straight. I'm measuring it to be that foot long because I want the head of the mallet to be about 6 inches wide. I'm looking for kind of a beefy mallet here. So that foot cut in half, there'll be 2 6-inch pieces. All that to say, the size of your mallet head, it can just be vibes, whatever you need it to be, just make that, it's custom. All right, but because I'm gonna be cutting everything by hand, I tend to have a problem where if I'm using a handsaw, it likes to drift on me a little bit. So I've always had trouble making perfectly straight cuts because I learned how to do everything on power tools. But I learned a really cool trick to help get around this. My first attempt at it is actually just using this piece of olive wood that I have right here, only because I know for a fact that it's nice and square at this corner. That's gonna give me a really nice guide for my saw. This I just line up on that line that I drew, and I clamp it into place. Now I can lay the flat of my saw right up against that block and use it as a guide to get myself started. Once it gets going, you could just remove your block because from then on, the board itself is providing that flat edge, so you can kind of just follow it all the way down. But again, I don't trust myself, so I just used it all the way through, and honestly, this came out perfect. The cleanest cut I've ever made. It's super smooth and absolutely square, like, it's perfect. I am very proud of that. Oh, and if you're curious, the saw I'm using, it's called a pull saw, or some are called like a flush cut saw. I think I've also heard it called like a Japanese woodworking saw. But yeah, it just has kind of that flat blade there. All right, so as I said, I want the head to be about 6 inches wide, so I went ahead and marked my 6 inches. And this worked perfect, it worked just as well as the other one. And now I have these 2 beautiful blocks to work with that are the same size, but there is a small problem. You see, once they're together, there's always this little gap. No matter which way I kind of position it, there's somewhere on one of the sides gonna be a gap here. That's because often when wood starts to dry, it could either cup or crown depending on which way you're looking at it. Basically, instead of saying flat, it bends over on itself, with one side being kind of concave, being a cup, and the other side being convex, being the crown. Now this will usually happen in the same direction the grain is going in, so if the grain is going this way, you can expect the bend is gonna go that way, you know what I mean? At any rate, this isn't awesome when you're trying to put 2 flat things together. If you want it to be perfectly flat, you usually have to do something to it. I don't have like a big joiner, but I do have this really kind of larger plane, which works really well for doing this particular thing. I basically just put the blocks down where I can push against my heavy slab here, and started taking off really thin layers on that top, moving with the grain and then also moving diagonal to the grain all around the board. And you'll see by the difference in color here that I'm starting to knock down all those really high areas. And the little chips I'm getting are very small because it's only taking those little spots. But as I continue to work, everything gets more uniform and flat, and pretty soon I'm getting these big kind of sheets of wood here. meaning I'm taking off more even surface. I just do this on all the sides until I'm satisfied with it, and look at how perfect these things come together. Not only is it nice and flat, but I'm left with all this fantastic scrap here that I could use for like tinder later on. It's great. By the way, I just need to gush about the fact that like, it is so awesome to use these hand tools and have that happen. Again, I've worked with wood for a long time, but I've really never done so with just hand tools. I always have to employ like a power tool of some sort. So it's just so cool to have something that is very custom made for this thing that you're trying to do and just to have it work so perfectly. Speaking of a tool that works perfectly for the thing you needed to do, I want to introduce today's sponsor, Squarespace. Though Squarespace is a fairly new sponsor to the channel, it is not at all new to like Skilltree as a business. We've been using Squarespace from the very start because it is just the easiest way to get yourself a website. Whether you're building something from scratch or utilizing the incredible library of templates they have, Squarespace makes it crazy easy for you just to get exactly what you need out there. And with design intelligence, which employs like AI to get you the website that you're looking for, it's even easier to make your online presence exactly what you want it to be. We've used it to make everything from like merch storefronts to little video libraries to show off our content. And it's great because with the insane schedule that we keep trying to get these videos out here, it's super easy to jump on there and just make any changes we need. Anyways, if you're ready to start building your website, just go to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then if you're ready to actually launch that website, go to squarespace.com/skilltree. And you'll save 10% off of your first purchase of a website or domain. They honestly make the process super easy, so definitely go check it out. Okay, at this point, we have the materials that we're gonna be making the head of the mallet out of pretty much settled. For the handle, we're gonna actually use just the leftover roughly foot of wood that we have here. I just used one of those blocks that we cut to give us the starting width of the handle, and then use my ruler just to mark it all the way down nice and evenly. Now we're gonna be shaping and shaving that down a bit, but that 2 inches squared was a nice place for me to start. Notice though that I not only marked the front and back of this piece of wood here, but I also carried those lines a little bit over the top. Because once again, I'm using only hand tools. So while before we were cutting across the grain, which makes that a cross cut, now we're gonna be cutting the lengthwise along the grain, which is called a rip cut. And I need those 2 lines just to follow all the way down to make sure that I'm going straight. So to do this, I just secured it into my table vise here. But this time I actually just used my clamps here because they have a nice flat edge. Then the same as before, I'm just kind of pressing against that straight edge and using it to guide me to get started. You'll also see as I'm going down here, I'm choosing one side and I'm angling my saw and then cutting as straight as possible down that line. Once I've got a good distance worth of a little cut there, I flip the board over and then I follow the other side's line, doing exactly the same thing. So if you visualize it inside of the board now, we have like a little angle here, right? We've got 2 perfectly straight lines kind of going down that line, and then we have the little chunk that I haven't touched in the middle. But because that's such a thin little chunk, it's really easy to saw away, and your saw really likes to follow the path of least resistance, which are those 2 lines that we already made. So this makes that cut nice and straight and really easy to do. And look at how pretty that is. It is perfect. Like this here is the other side of that, and it is like perfectly square and smooth. It's just so cool you could do that with a handsaw. Pretty easily too. That took like no time at all to do. All right, so now that we have the handle kind of roughed out, we need to start shaping it so it'll actually fit into our mallet the way we need it to. So the way this particular mallet is designed is that top is gonna have a little flare in it, and it's gonna force fit actually into the head itself. It's basically only held together by pressure, and if you need to, you can disassemble. You can take the handle right apart, you can replace it, it makes it easier to pack. You'll see as we go along, it's just a really cool design. For starters though, I needed to see where the head of the mallet was gonna land on this thing. So I just kind of positioned it how I wanted it to be, with about 1 inch hanging out from one end. This I marked on my handle just so I knew where everything would land. Next, I drew a line directly down the middle just so I can make sure everything would stay nice and even. Just measuring out 1/2 inch from either side so that I had about 1 inch worth of a handle there. And again, this is all vibes. If you're wondering where I got that measurement, I got it from this handle. I like the feel of this particular handle here, so that's the width I'm making it. That's all. You can make it however you want though. And though I used those lines to make sure I was even all the way up the length of this thing, the really important part are where these lines intersect that first line of where the mallet head lands. That's because we're gonna go from where those lines intersect all the way out to the corners of the board, making kind of a wedge shape. And basically everything outside of these lines I have to remove. Now again, if you have power tools, this is a great time to use like a bandsaw. Just follow your lines and you're done. Or we could go through with our saw and just cut it exactly to shape too, but I really wanted to try using my draw knife to do this. just because it felt cool. It's a tool I don't get to use very often. And doing this actually taught me a whole bunch about it. It was fun to feel just how precise you can be, and when you like catch a grain just right and you ride along it, it became really, really easy. And though it seems kind of tedious, this went very quickly, especially because I did exactly the same thing I did before, where I just kind of took out the edges first, which left me with a bit of a mound in the middle, which again was very easy to remove with that knife. And by doing that, I was able to get it actually pretty smooth. Then for any of the bits that I missed, I just used this rasp here to even it out. And to make sure it was even, I used my ruler, guiding it along the edge until I either felt there was a dip somewhere or that it rocked. Then just went back in with that rasp to clean it up. Was it super extra? Yes. Did it come out good though? Yeah, I'm really actually very happy with how that came out. And that gives us the shape that's gonna give us the function of our handle here. That's that wedge at the top especially that we needed. That's gonna make it so it can connect to the head. Now we've gotta cut out little channels for it to slide into. Before we get into how to cut that though, if you wanted to skip this step, what you could technically do is actually use 3 boards to make your head there. And the middlemost board, you can actually just cut at that angle, right? So when you sandwich it all together, you're gonna have that gap in there and it's gonna be super easy to do. For me though, I just started by making my center line again so I'd have nice and easy measurements coming off of it. And then after lining my handle up and making the marks there, I just double checked with my ruler to make sure they were nice and straight. I of course did these on both so they perfectly match, and then carried their lines up and outside just so that I can lay down my guides on how deep I need to cut this thing. So as you can see, both the top and the bottom have these squares dropped in it, which are as wide as those lines that we drew, and the 1.5 inch tall that was the original kind of thickness of this, because that's what that block still is, which translates to be 3/4 of an inch on either block. Basically, you want it to fit, right? You just need those squares to measure out exactly what your block is. I hope that makes sense. It was weird to say out loud, I think. Anywho, with those good to go, I just used my marking knife to make a little groove in these, then used a chisel to deepen those grooves, making sure the flat of my chisel was up against the side of the material that I'd be keeping. Finally, I went back in with my chisel at an angle, hammering into that indentation I just cut so I make a little V groove there. Doing this just makes a nice groove for my saw to slot into, giving me a great start to make sure this line is nice and straight. Then I followed my line, checking both sides every once in a while just to make sure I was staying nice and straight. And also making sure I stopped right at that depth that I marked. Happy with that, I just went back in with my chisel, again making sure the flat was against the side that I'm keeping, and chiseled out all that excess material. The nice sharp chisel, not only can you remove all that material that you just kind of cut, but you can go back in and just kind of shave it until it's super smooth. Like, look at this. It looks like it was sanded or whatever, but it was just kind of carved smooth with my chisel. That's really neat. Now you can see how this thing actually works. Check it out. This handle just kind of slides into that groove until it meets that little V there, where it totally gets stuck because of the tension. Just so long as the top of that handle is wider than the opening, it's gonna wedge itself in there. Happy with how that works, I just hit both sides of the inside of that mallet with some rough grit sandpaper so the glue had more place to grab onto. Then gave it plenty of glue, which I smoothed out with a brush to make sure it really covered both sides. After that, it was into the clamps, giving 24 hours for it to cure completely, which gives us this block of wood with a perfect square cut out in the middle here. Now, traditionally, these mallets have a 3 to 5 degree angle cut into the face of them. It just makes the swinging them more comfortable so you're hitting more flat with this motion of your arm. So I just use an angle finder here and put a 4 degree angle right in the middle of those two numbers, right on either side. These, again, I followed all the way around though, just to make sure I had a nice even view of what I was cutting. Then again, I used the same exact clamp trick just to give myself a good start, and followed my line all the way down carefully until it was through. And again, this trick worked perfectly. That looks great. It is exact, and I didn't even need to end up sanding the damn thing. It's just perfect. It's super smooth. Really super proud of how that comes out. Just to really clean it up, I use my plane again to make sure the top and the bottom are perfectly flat and nice and clean looking too. Then I use my tiny little plane here too, just to chamfer those edges as well. Not only is that going to make it look better, but it's actually going to make it last longer because those sharp corners are way more prone to getting like dinged and broken than a rounded corner is. That said, the beauty of a wooden mallet is it is supposed to be disposable. You are supposed to really beat the hell out of this thing. Eventually, you knock the head off of it. If the front of it's messed up, you can recut it if you want to, or you just make another one. Now, as one last little detail, I wanted the handle to thin out a little bit when it came to the top because I feel like it'd be more comfortable when I'm doing more delicate work to hold up higher and have it be smaller. than it is when I'm really trying to just wham the thing and hold it at the bottom. So to do that, I just kind of roughly drew what that taper would look like on all sides. Then I used my chisel to cut in where I wanted that to stop so it didn't get into the part that I needed to actually like seal against the head. After that, I was back to my draw knife just to really shape that thing out and make it look good. I also used this opportunity to knock down all the corners all along the thing just to round that handle out more. And after some light sanding, check that out, that's a handle. Even more so, check that out. That's a mallet. That's a cool looking mallet too. And it's comfortable. I'm really, really happy with this thing. I did decide, just because I wanted to throw it in the ye olde laser just to put a cool design on it. I'm not counting this as part of like using only hand tools. I could have engraved it. I have like a weekend to put these things together and I just kind of wanted it to look cool. It's a personal thing, I don't know. But look at it, it does look cool. Check that thing out. Finally, just for a little added protection, I put some boiled linseed oil on it, which is just gonna help protect it from any kind of moisture or anything. Then I put it together and kind of slam it against the table to really lock it in. And look at this thing. Look at how cool it is. This is an awesome mallet, like it is. Hell yeah, that must have sounded great in the mic, but hell yeah, this thing is awesome. It is weighty, it is solid, it is comfortable to hold, and the nice thing is, I made it. If it ever becomes uncomfortable to hold or I want to try it, I'll just change the handle, whatever. It's just like made out of some scrap that I had. And again, if I want to make any kind of adjustments to it, I just gotta kind of check that out. Comes apart, I can pack it away, I can change the head, I can change the handle, put it back together again, nice and simple, boop, boop, there. It does not want to come apart unless I hit it with some kind of a hammer or mallet or something. This thing's awesome. It's so cool. And what's more, I made it. I made it with my hands, and I can make another one just as easily. Even more easily with other tricks if I wanted to. But in making this one mallet, think of all the different things we had to learn how to do, right? Simple things to just the measuring it out, to the moderately more complex of cutting perfectly straight lines. Using our chisels, using our planers, and in something that's very forgiving. Like if this didn't come out absolutely perfect and tight on the top, honestly, it would still work. It wouldn't look as pretty, but it would still come out good, right? It also teaches you a lot about the materials. Like I didn't show it off a lot while I was doing there, but if you go against the grain a certain way, it wants to chip out way deeper than if you go the opposite way. So it becomes like this dance with the wood where you're constantly like trying to make it do what you want it to do while operating within what it is okay with doing. It sounds cheesy, but it enters you into this weird like flow state of you're constantly talking with the material and trying to make it exactly what you need it to be while it's fighting you a little bit. At least it's fighting you a little bit if you're not listening. Super fun to do. And wildly approachable because most of the tools I used for this, I actually got at like yard sales and flea markets. I think I got both of these together in a bundle for like, I don't know, 20 bucks. I think the only thing that I actually kind of bought new was the saw that I used. And even then, you can totally get some great saws at yard sales and stuff. But yeah, definitely give this one a try. It is a super fun skill to have, and it just teaches you a whole bunch. And at the end of it, you have an awesome tool. So that's great too. Leave down in the comments section below what other like maybe tools you'd like to see made, because I think I'm kind of hooked in making my own tools. It's a lot of fun. Also, if you like this episode, don't forget to give me that like it love and subscribe so you know when I release new content. In the meantime though, keep leveling up, you. You've made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that, and it's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we can't do any of this without them. A massive shout out to our Grandmaster tier Patreon, Froggy and Dragon Design. It blows my mind that you guys support us in the way that you do, and we are deeply appreciative of it. If you like what we do here enough to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you check out one of these videos that YouTube thinks you'd like, and that helps out a lot too. All right, I must go find things to hit with my mighty mallet of might. So cool, love this thing.